Greetings, friends. David Marks here. Adobe added the ability to place a graphic watermark over top our images into Adobe Lightroom a few months ago. To be clear, I'm going to be talking about the cloud-based type of Adobe Lightroom here, and not the desktop-focused Adobe Photoshop Lightroom Classic application. I have a separate in-depth tutorial on watermarks for you Lightroom Classic users elsewhere. If this lesson is for you, be sure that you're running the latest version of the Adobe Lightroom and Adobe Lightroom for mobile apps on your computer and your mobile devices before you start. Let me hop into my Adobe Lightroom library and let's get started. On the screen right now are some images that I've already perfected here inside of Lightroom. Let's say that I'm pleased with the way this photo looks, and now I want to send a copy of this file over to a client for them to review via email. Well, to do that, I need to export a copy. So I'm going to go File, Export. Now in a previous tutorial, I talked about all of the options that we get when we use the export feature here in Lightroom. I'm not going to rehash that whole tutorial today. So if the options here inside of this export screen are new for you, then please watch my other video on what all of these settings mean before proceeding. Anyway, for today's lesson, I'm going to start with my export options set up this way, and then I'm going to tap here to activate the Include Watermark option. Next, I'm going to tap on this tiny gear to open up the Watermark Editor. With Lightroom Cloud-based version 4, we now have the option to use a graphic watermark in here instead of a simple layer of text. Using a graphical watermark, something like your signature or a logo, is something that a lot of photographers do to add a little branding to the images that they share online. Anyway, to add a graphical watermark, I'm going to click right here on the word that says graphic. Next, I'm going to tap here to choose the file I want. When this box appears, I'm going to guide this dialog over to whatever folder contains my logo files. Once I have found the file that I want, I'm going to hit choose, and like that, you can see my logo appeared in the bottom right corner. Now there are a couple of important details that I need to mention at this point. First, the graphic watermark or logo that you want to use here must be either in the JPEG or the PNG file format. Second, you will not enjoy this feature if your logo has a colored background. For best results here, make sure that your logo is surrounded by a transparent background when you design it. Finally, you cannot use files that are larger than 5 megabytes in size. Now, as you can see, my logo meets all of these standards, and so Lightroom has added it onto this image for me. If I wanted to position my logo somewhere else, I could tap on any one of these anchor point buttons. I can also use the horizontal and vertical offset sliders to further refine my logo's position. If needed, I could use the size slider to make the logo bigger or smaller. And finally, if I choose, I can use the opacity slider to make my graphic more transparent or less transparent. When it's more transparent, more of the underlying image will shine right through. This looks good to me. So now I'm going to tap on the Done button at the top. And then back here in the main export screen, I'm going to tap on this Export One Photo button at the top right. Just to demo, I'll put this file out there on my desktop. And once it's been exported, I'll show you the results. Bam! That was super easy. And now I could send this image via email to my client or a friend for them to review. I'm going to skip the email part and return to Lightroom. Back here in Lightroom, I just want to reassure you that adding a watermark, like everything else that we do in Lightroom's export dialog, has absolutely no effect on your original image. Creating that JPEG copy for email with the watermark will not harm my original RAW file, so there's nothing to worry about here. Next, I want to show you that the work we did is not limited to the desktop version of the Adobe Lightroom cloud-based application either. In fact, one of the coolest features of this new graphical watermarking system only appears when we switch over to one of my mobile devices. So pardon me for a second here while I switch the recording over to my iPad Pro. Okay, so now that we're here on the iPad, I'm going to tap to open up the Adobe Lightroom app. Next, I'm going to select another photo that I want to share with the same client using another tap. Now, I'm going to bring up the Sharing Options menu, which lives here beneath this symbol on iOS devices. Android users, you have almost the exact same thing, but this menu lives underneath a different looking symbol in the top right corner of the Lightroom for Android apps interface. Anyway, what I want to show is that if I tap on Export As, and then if I tap here to activate the watermark, and then on this little sideways triangle, then a menu will appear that is much smaller but almost identical to what we saw a minute ago when I was working away on my computer. All of the same controls that I had on the computer are in here. I can move my logo to the center, to the right, to the left. I can make it bigger, I can make it smaller, all the same controls. But there's something even more impressive going on. The watermark that you see here in the bottom corner of this image, this is the exact same logo that I used a minute ago on my computer. You're going to have to trust me here, but I swear to you that I have never loaded this PNG file onto this iPad or any of my other mobile devices. This is the really revolutionary part. What's so cool here is that whenever you apply a watermark using the cloud-based type of Lightroom, then all of your watermark settings, including a copy of the graphic watermark file that you last used, are automatically synchronized across all of your Lightroom for mobile devices. I know that that might not sound like a big deal, but it makes using the same logo with the exact same settings consistent, whether I'm working on my computer, my phone, or my tablet. Just to prove this, let me change logos, and then I'll export this file. To change logos, I'm going to tap here, just like I did on the computer. Next, I'll guide the Lightroom app over to a different PNG file here on my iPad. If needed, I can adjust my settings. I think I'll make this one a little bigger. Maybe I'll bring it over to the side and down. And let's make it a little more solid. I'm happy. Now, I'm going to finish this export. To do that, I'll tap here, and then I'll tap here, and then I'll tell this one to save this to my files. Let's just put it right there on the iPad. Let me show you what we just created. Boom. Again, I'm not going to bother emailing or uploading this image to a social media platform right now, but you get the idea. So now that this file has been exported, I'm going to close out of here. I promise I'm not going to touch any other buttons, but let me switch back over to my computer. I promise that I didn't do anything else while the video recording was changing from one device to another. Watch how here on my Mac, when I tap on another image, and then I go File, Export, as soon as I get to the Graphic Watermark Options menu, that same logo, this time one with my name at the top and my website on a second line that I used just a minute ago on my iPad, those are already in place for me here. All right, so at this point, I've covered everything that I need to show you about how graphic watermarks actually work inside of the cloud-based Lightroom ecosystem. I hope that you found this video helpful. If you learned something today, then please hit the subscribe button and leave us a like or a comment down below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in our next tutorial.